Episode 61. A big deal? Jade knew about Mr. Victor Carson, but she could hardly imagine that it would result in something so serious. Why was Suzanne into this? Reporters were unstoppable when it came to writing articles. Jade didn't know what happened after she left the Scoville Club, but no matter how much ever she thought about it, it was impossible for Suzanne to privately meet Mr. Victor Carson for a reason so petty. As Jade puzzled over the events, Daria finished washing the dishes and brought a plate of fruit over. "Come on, let's have some fruit." Jade took the plate of apple slices. Each piece was stuck with a cute toothpick. Her heart immediately melted to see that. Her chain of thoughts suddenly broke into something important. It was that day in the Scoville Club. Wasn't it Dario who took her away? She looked at the TV and then looked at Dario with a sudden understanding. "Mr. Foster, you did this, didn't you?" Jade asked seriously, gazing deeply into his eyes. Daria looked at the news and smiled, but she still detected a trace of coldness. "Guess." Jade blinked. She did not expect him to say this. "I think it must have something to do with you." She hadn't expected anyone to help her like this. He obviously punished those two people who troubled her to vent his anger. However, she really didn't think that he would take it to this extent. Was Dario really that powerful? Jade wondered. Jade remembered all those times when Suzanne insulted her and her mother. Every time Suzanne was humiliated and called foul names to Jade's mother, her heart broke, and she remembered how. She stopped with a sigh as the news anchor read out the news once again, and she saw the headlines. Jade sighed and chuckled. She then looked at Dario, who was busy having the fruits. Her admiration for Dario deepened. She carefully studied his face. After a long time, she slowly said, "Mr. Foster, you said you didn't have a job. You must be lying. I think you have more than a job." She felt stupid, that she should have realized this a long time ago. He could afford a car, a house, a driver, and also a chain of hotels. It was obvious that he was no ordinary person. Dario narrowed his eyes. It seemed that she was smarter than he had imagined. Just by looking at the news, she was sure that it was his masterpiece. He had put in a lot of effort to hide this matter. "Don't you trust me at all? Why suddenly accuse me of lying?" The Winslet family has some status in Washington. I don't think that Mr. Victor Carson is just some ordinary person. Suzanne is also quite a respectable person in their society. Jade added it was actually not an easy task to punish both Suzanne and Mr. Carson at the same time, so it had to be Dario, given his position, which was not of a common man. "You must be more powerful than them." Jade's bright eyes flashed with wisdom. There was a faint smile and a trace of worry on her face. This Dario Foster was really not a simple person. Perhaps he was more powerful than she imagined? Could she really be with such a person? "Looks like I can't call you an idiot anymore," Dario said, listening to her analysis. Dario's eyes suddenly showed a trace of appreciation for her. He picked up an apple and fed it to her. He carefully wiped the residue from the corner of her mouth, moving extremely gently. Jade bit the sweet and delicious apple and protested. "I've always been smart, okay?" After that, she asked curiously, "By the way, Mr. Foster, what do you do for work?" She'd never seen him go to work and had never heard him talk about his job. Jade was a little curious when she saw how capable he was. "If you're so smart, why don't you guess?" Dario's voice was low and magnetic. He took advantage of the opportunity to hold her in his arms. Jade was even softer than the cushion on the sofa beside him. Every time he saw her, he could not help the desire to hold her tightly in his arms. Dario took off his coat. The cuffs of his white shirt were lifted, and 2 buttons were opened on his chest, revealing his muscular chest. She leaned against him and felt his hot body. She felt very safe in his arms, so safe that she could even disappear in those when the same thoughts scared her. Jade broke the trance to take another slice of apple. "I think you must be a big deal." She remembered how he had commanded his subordinates in the study. Ordinary people would not have this authority, aura, or temperament. Jade asked, "So, which company are you running? I can't guess." "Do you really want to know?" Dario inquired. Jade smiled and stuck out her tongue. She said mischievously, "I am not that eager to know. It is said that a woman should always follow her husband." Dario immediately pulled her back. His eyes were a little cold. He leaned close to her ear and said coldly, "You dare to scold me. Your mouth is getting more and more powerful. It seems like you want me to punish you." No, I would never dare to scold you. But I am really curious about what happened at the Scoville Club. What happened to Suzanne? How did she land up there? Jade didn't like Suzanne, but after all, she was her aunt, and she grew up under their surveillance. But with Suzanne, each day brought her to a new nightmare. So despite seeing Suzanne in this predicament, her heart was very happy. She thought that after she left the Scoville Club that day, Victor Carson and Suzanne would cause trouble and even threaten her grandmother. She didn't expect anything to happen, and the eerie calmness worried her. As it turned out, Suzanne was already too busy to take care of herself. Where could she find the time to stir up trouble with Jade? "You only need to know that they will no longer cause trouble with you." Dario only uttered this one sentence when he saw Jade lost in her thoughts. He could understand what she was thinking about. His domineering and confident words made Jade even more certain that the news reports were his doing. But why are you doing this? She didn't understand why he would help her, since they had only known each other for a few days, though she was his wife. She didn't know why it seemed he always appeared just in time to help her, whether it was at the Scoville Club or the dormitory. Jade could not help but suspect that Dario had an ulterior motive. She wondered what was so special about her that warranted Dario Foster's help. "Did you really forget?" Dario's eyes suddenly became serious. "What did I forget?" Jade was confused. Dario narrowed his eyes and looked at the calm face in front of him. 5 years ago, she was young and tender, but she was beginning to emit the aura of a mature woman. Then, his gaze fell on her chest. It seemed that she had developed very well these past few years. The design of her collar revealed this physical development even more accurately. He narrowed his eyes. No wonder so many men had looked at her in the supermarket just now. It seemed that he could no longer let her wear these kind of clothes in the future. Everything about her belonged to him. 5 years ago. Just as Dario said these 3 words, Jade's phone rang. She looked down at the number and apologized to Dario before she answered. "Hello, Sheila? Did something happen to my grandma?" Jade nervously held the phone. She knew that Sheila would not call her unless it was an emergency.